YouTube, Thunderblade in the area. So, thin versus wide, which are better for your electric inline skate? And the answer might surprise some of you guys, so let's go. So if you've been following Thunderblade for a while, you might have seen this prototype and this modern prototype right now. Why the change? What's the difference between them, and what's the pros and cons, and why would you choose this over this or vice versa? So let's start with the good points of the thin wheel. They are more familiar. Everyone knows them. Everyone has skated them. They are agile. They are lightweight. They are really good at sliding because you have very little surface area in contact with the ground. When turning or sliding or making some maneuvers in the ground surface, it's really good to have that small surface area in contact to the ground so you can slide better. But what about on electric inline skate? Not having enough grip on electric inline skates might not be that good a thing. If you have a too powerful motor, you could have skidding, right? You would like crank the throttle and then it's like, you know, that kind of skidding. But the main problem with the lack of grip is really when the surface is wet. Okay, no one likes to skate in the rain, but right after the rain, let's say use your electric inline skate to commute. Right after you get out of work, and you're going home, the rain just stopped. So the terrain is all wet. And when you go out and you go make a curve, you make a turn with your more traditional thin inline skate wheels, depending on the surface, you might not have enough grip and you might fall. While it might be a little bit more familiar to use the thin wheels, they might not have enough grip for certain situations when sometimes you just have to skate, right? You're not going on a leisure ride. But of course, if you only use it for leisure ride, only for fun, only when it's bright sunny days and on a controlled environment, on a perfect pathway, it's all fine. You can't go on grass, you can't go on dirt, even with really large wheels, they're not very good for off-road. Which brings us to the wide wheels. The main benefit of having wide wheels is off-roading, because when you have a thin wheel and you go on soft ground, the thin wheel gets stuck in the ground. It kind of sinks, okay? It sinks in the ground. If you go onto mud, okay, it's impossible. The thin wheel just sink into the mud and you'll be stuck and you might be eating some dirt. Yeah, not very good. So with wide wheels, you have much more surface area, so it's harder to sink. Okay, of course, if the mud is too deep or too soft, you're going to sink anyway. But for grass or for bad pavement, which we all have a lot of these, right? Maybe loose rock and sand over the pavement. So that surface area is really welcoming if the scenario is commuting. But even so, if it's just leisure, okay, just leisure, you're just going out on a leisure ride, Sunday morning, it's all sunny, you can still go from sidewalk to the other sidewalk over the grass. You don't need to confine yourself on such perfect pavement on your leisure ride. And if you're going on cycle paths or maybe some tourism, sometimes you don't have the perfect pathway. Sometimes you have cobblestones, sometimes you have dirt, and if you're doing tourism, you can't predict what you're going to go over. So wide wheels, much better for this. And the cons are basically the opposite of the thin wheels, right? Because it has so much grip, it's not easy to slide. Okay, so you're going to make a curve, like, and then no sliding, you're just going to stop. So it's not, if you are really into slides, it might not be that much fun using wide wheels. And to make curves, because there's so much grip, it's really hard to make tight turns with wide wheels. But for going on straight lines, they're much better, even because like these wide wheels that Thunderblade uses, they have a really soft rubber. so they absorb a lot more of the vibration of the road. Even really, really good asphalt vibrates like hell when you're going 40 kilometers an hour for over, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes, like, yeah. Your feet start to get numb with the vibration from the traditional wheels, and these wide wheels absorb the vibration way much more. And little pebbles, like you're going over little pebbles, you know little pebbles are the doom of any skater. So wide wheels are kind of better going over these little pebbles, but the thing about this is really size, right? Diameter. If a bigger diameter, you go over pebbles much better. And one more thing about the practicity of actually building electric inline skates. Because of the properties of the physics, okay, of the electric motor, it's much better to have a motor that the diameter is almost the same as the width. You can make a thin motor, you can make it thinner. They are called pancake motors. You can make them. But as a matter of efficiency, like for more wattage, for a more powerful motor, you want it to be like a square. So it's much easier to find good motors in a square form factor than in a pancake form factor. They exist, but they're much harder to come by. So when you go to a thin wheel, it's much harder to make a really good electric motor that fits inside that wheel. Okay, let's talk only about hub motors here. So if the wheel is thin and you're putting electric motor, you will have to get a slimmer, right? Slimmer electric motor. So with a wide tire, wide wheel on the electric inline skate, it's much easier to find a more traditional electric motor that fits inside that wheel. And this motor this prototype from last year that Thundrblade is using right now, this hub motor, it uses almost exactly the same motor that hub motor from electric skateboards. It's cheaper because a lot more has been made over the years. So in conclusion, thin wheels are better for sliding, for a more traditional feel of for a traditional inline skate, but they are worse for off-roading and for wet. So you just flip that, and wide wheels are much better for wet and much better for off-road, but they're not really good for sliding. And of course the weight, wider, of course, there's more rubber, more wheel, they are heavier. So that's it. Kinda can build both ways. You can build an electric inline skate with thin wheels, hub motors, and you can build with wide wheels. Which one would you prefer and why? Personally, I really like the wide wheel. If I want a more traditional feeling of inline skating, I just use my traditional inline skates, okay? I will drive my car over to the perfect place for skating and then I will skate there. But if I have an electric inline skate and I'm going to commute with it and I'm going to use it on a daily basis and I'm going to use it for transportation, it's much better to have the wide wheels. So they are more practical and they're more feasible on our not perfect roads that I have around me. But what about you? So would you rather have this more traditional feeling with electric motors, or would you rather have a better commuting machine? So it's up to you, and let's storm the streets.